I remember having a conversation with my dad recently about the Final Fantasy games, and specifically Final Fantasy VIII. I love this game, but I've played it so much that it's not even difficult anymore. The Junction system is a cool idea, but when you know how it works, it quite literally breaks the game. So I decided to put that knowledge to the test and attempt to do a solo playthrough of the game, and for the spirit of the run, we will name Squall Solo. Starting off the game, you have to take this preliminary test with your teacher named Quistis to become a certified mercenary called Seed, and your first assignment is to fight Ifrit in the Fire Cavern and acquire him as a GF, or summon for the uninformed. Before we leave the grounds and receive our first GFs, Quetzalcoatl, who I named Peekaburb, and Shiva, who I named Elsa. Now that we have these GFs, we can junction them to our character, which allows us to customize our loadout. You will not be able to do so unless you have one equipped, so we will equip all GFs to Solo, only switching them out to Zell when Solo is not available. At this point of the game, tutorials pop up every few minutes, which are unfortunately unskippable. Firstly, our GFs level up abilities for receiving AP from battles to learn certain skills. We are going to set up Elsa to learn Ice Magic Refine, which will allow us to create water spells from the fish on the beach and junction them to Strength once we have Ifrit, which will remain until we finish the Dalit mission and get the Wizard Stones. So I'm sure you're thinking, hell yeah, he's ready to go. Time for the Fire Cavern. Nope. We're going to make a pit stop to the beach and woods by the cavern to draw a bunch of spells from the monsters before heading there. I will be utilizing the ×3 fast forward mechanic for the PS5 to save time with grinding and skipping dialogue to this run. Throwing it out there because you will notice it later on. A couple of things to note as Solo is running to Ifrit. Enemies scale with you as you level up, so keeping your level relatively low pretty much nerfs endgame bosses. Since your stats raise with junctioning magic, it keeps enemies weak and makes you strong. Also for bosses, Solo cannot take an action that will damage the enemy until both other party members are dead. The only exception is Solo healing himself, and the others can attack themselves to speed up the process, but they cannot do anything else. Ifrit is the first boss and is incredibly easy. The game has some difficult fights very early if you don't understand the mechanics, but this is not one of them. Attack or use Blizzard, either one will kick his booty. Now that we have obtained Ifrit, we'll name him Devil Dog and junction him so we can junction strength attributes now. Each GF has their own unique abilities, so I will do my best to explain what I use them for. The AP should have been enough to earn the Refine Ice skill, so we're going to go to the fishes on the beach and get the Fish Fin item and refine them into the water spell and junction that to Solo's strength. Now he should already be way overpowered and scaled for several hours into the game. Fast forward a bunch of story building, we are now on our way to the demo mission of the game, which will determine if we get classed as a seed or not. We are paired with Zell, who is our replacement Solo, and Cypher, who is one of the primary antagonists of the game. We go through the mission as normal, and we notice quickly that Cypher has an inferiority complex and is a complete disregard for protocol. Your teammate Selphie gets introduced before Cypher's actions land you in a fight with Elvaray. This fight used to intimidate me when I was younger, but it ain't no thing. He intermittently casts Storm Breath, which damages all party members, but you are the only one to begin with, so it doesn't really matter. I have pretty decent magic junction to my HP at this stage of the game, so it's pretty easy to stay above the danger threshold. If you do happen to drop beneath half health, this opens the door for you to use your limit break ability. You will see me use and abuse this strat as the game progresses. Before we wipe the floor with this guy, be sure to draw the GF Siren from him so we can get her status effect attack and defense junctions. Since she is a mermaid, we are going to name her Fish. So, two Galbadian goobers couldn't handle the loss, so they sent a big mechanical spider on us that chases you out of town with the time limit. It is possible to beat this guy, but since I don't want to use GFs in combat, we're going to damage him to stagger him and then run away, as the game is scripted to do. But before we leave him at the last stage, we need to make sure we draw 100 protects, as we will be using them quite a bit in the early game. Back at the garden, yay, we became a seed and now we're going to a party. We meet a cute girl and we get hit on by our teacher, who then wants us to rendezvous in the training area. Brother, we just did a whole ass mission and now you want us to do more stuff. So we meet her in the training area and she starts talking about the T-Rexar enemy, and beating it with Sleep Junction to our blade makes the fight easy. which sounds awesome. Except we're not going to do that because we don't want the XP. However, we are going to get 100 sleeps from the Grats, and I will have Sleep Junction to my blade for the entire game because everyone is weak to it for some reason. In the training area, she says she got fired and our solo is truly living the solo life by absolutely not caring at all. We hear a scream after leaving the spot and another fight ensues with a Grinaldo. This fight is piss easy no matter what you do, so moving on. Now that we have the Wizard Stones from the boss, we can refine Blizzaga and then junction that to our strength. We should be sitting about 400 damage and attack already, and we've only been playing for about 2 hours. It's absolutely nutty. We wake up to Selphie telling us it's time for their first mission as Seed. Before you leave, the headmaster gives you a lamp with a GF named Diablos in it. His main attribute is no encounters, and we definitely want to revisit that later. He has some dangerous attacks, so we want to make sure we are more prepared though first. One aspect of the story are flashbacks that I really don't feel the need to add this to the video because they don't have any boss fights in them, and in my opinion the story pretty much remains the same without them. But in short review, someone who will come back into the story later is sending you back in time into your dad's body, which is really freaking weird, to see if the past can change, which you find out it can't, so it was pointless. Okay, moving on. So we arrive in the town Timber, which is under oppressive control by the enemy government. We find out that we are contracted to help give the resistance liberty and meet the cute girl from the party. That's crazy when life works out that way. So this is the only other party member that we can name, and since she becomes our GF, not to be confused with GF, stay with me here, we name her Dolo because it rhymes with solo. Leave me alone, okay? Then she's like, oh wow, my dog is super smart and I use him like a cannon in fights and his name is Bork. Then we get a whole tutorial with his name is Bork and I literally could not stop laughing. And for some reason, he makes this weird ass sound when you press him for dialogue, so obviously we were going to try to match the melody of the song before continuing. Anyways, we proceed with this absolutely bananas mission of uncoupling trains and switching tracks to kidnap the president, and somehow nobody died. Yeah, okay. We interrogate the president, who turns out to be a fake, not to be confused with the fake one we have to replace him with, so a fake of the fake, if you will, and he turns into a demon blob like that of Hojo's experiments. This fight legitimately took me 20 minutes because of all the status ailments he kept casting and the necessity of keeping your health topped off. Not hard, but tedious. Once arriving back in Timber, Cypher shows up again and attacks the president and is recruited by sorceress Adea. Zell is a freaking dummy and says that they're from the garden on live television, so obviously there will be consequences coming up. But not before Adea throws a parade first. But we'll roast that plot line in a little bit. Quistis says there's a garden in Galbadia, which you are near, so that's the next destination. After skipping another flashback that featured an endgame area before it was finished being built, it is now time to rub-a-dub-dub the lamp and fight Diablos. First we cast Protect because his physical attacks used to give me trouble with 3 people, and you don't want him to follow up with Gravija with one of those. It could potentially one-shot you. Gravija will knock you down 75% and put you in HP limit break area, and since we're already so strong, it should only take 2 or 3 turns. I couldn't think of anything else, so I named him Dorito. We equip his half encounter and set him to learn no encounters and then head towards Galbadia Garden. There's some dialogue in a waiting room where everyone is talking about Cypher and him most likely being dead for assaulting the president. Dolo says she used to date Cypher last year, and that is totally my favorite part of the game and definitely not dumb as hell. No. Solo freaks out and leaves the room, and no one ever mentions that interaction ever again, which is really odd. Outside, we meet with the headmaster of this garden, and he says that we have to assassinate the sorceress that we just met. He introduces us to our final and everyone's least favorite party member, Irvine, and we head for Delling City, where the sorceress is throwing a parade instead of attacking our garden for some reason. When we arrive, we are told we have to prove our strength before we can end the first disc in typical RPG fashion. So we go to the Tomb of the Unknown King to get the number of the previous dummy who died, and of course we want to fight the duo GF boss here and get their absurd HP percentage boost. On our way into the tomb, there were some girls running out saying, "Float!" So if it wasn't obvious, you need to cast Float on the brothers to keep them from auto-healing. With Kiraga Junction to our HP and Blizzaga Junction to our strength, this fight was easy peasy. We end up naming them compadres. We go back to Delling City to report our findings and gain access to the general's abode. We find out that the general of this Galbadian city is Dolo's dad. Like, that isn't the most problematic thing we've heard so far. So this absolute genius takes us out into the show us the plan in the middle of the street. This freaking brainiac is running across the street like, "Look here, the float is going there." Also, where the hell is everyone? What time is this happening? You're telling me that these people aren't lined up for hours in advance for this parade? Clearly, you've never worked in a theme park, sir. I won't even begin to go into all the convenient plot devices that happen at this part because it'll give me brain damage, but we start the mission. Things go bad and we have to fight some bosses. First of which is a lizard duo that can petrify your party, but it doesn't seem like they want to do that. We also need to draw a carbuncle from them before we wipe the floor with them. We name this dude Hamster because he is some kind of rodent. After an incredibly dull sewer section and a monumental failure from Irvine to assassinate Adea, Solo goes all Nathan Drake and starts a full frontal assault on Cypher and the Sorceress. But wait, what? How does that work? Did the float turn around? That makes literally no sense. Anyways, Cypher is down in like 3 or 4 turns, and the first rendition of the Sorceress is pretty easy too. And that's the end of Disc 1. We've made it through a quarter-ish of the game with minimal difficulty and no deaths so far. The beginning of Disc 2 is definitely my least favorite part of this game, so please pay no mind to me doing a speed run talking about it. We get a flashback of Solo's dad developing a relationship with his mom and a little girl who sends you back in time, who ends up being a pseudo-sister to Solo. Everyone wakes up in a prison and we find out that now Adea is mad about the president being attacked and is launching missiles at our garden. So now we do tedious runbacks, fight a boss of regular enemies, and then escape the prison. We now break our party into 2 halves because Selphie really wants to go on a reconnaissance mission to prevent the missiles from launching, and Solo is heading back to the garden to warn everyone. We send Zell and Selphie because he is our Solo replacement, and for once I sent Dolo to be with Solo. We can't keep them apart, guys. I usually send her on the reconnaissance mission because I like the interactions they have when she shows back up, but I really liked how they filled the time in this save, which I'll talk about later. Zell's group arrives at the base, and this is legitimately one of my favorite parts of any Final Fantasy. I freaking love the goofy spy song while we're being knuckleheads and no one seems to notice. We beat another easy boss by using Zell's duel on repeat, and we get a fake out that the 3 of them blow up in the explosion. If only. Then I wouldn't have to keep murdering them in the beginning of boss fights. Switching parties to the primary team, we arrive at the garden and there's some foolishness afoot and all's not well in our garden's management team. So we side with Sid because we don't even know who Norg is. Sure can't wait to find that out. Bet he's a nice guy and definitely human. We find Sid after fighting some dudes at work that we definitely wouldn't like in real life, and he puts you in charge for some reason. Like, bro, I'm 17 years old. Also, what is it with the fascination in making all main characters so young in these games? Like, I'm 32 and I cannot relate to this at all. We head down into the sub-levels to do the thing and find a duo octopus boss that is another easy win, and then continue into the control room. We then find out that the garden can move and we drive it out of the way of the missiles heading our direction. But now we're stuck at sea with nothing but our thoughts and no idea what to do next, since we're pretty much at war with Galbadia now. Day 1 out at sea, Dolo wants to walk around the garden with us on a date, and who are we to turn the girl down? We walk around for a bit and then get called to the bottom level as a summons to talk to Norg. We find out that this blob is the main person who funded the garden and that we were manipulated by Galbadia to assassinate the sorceress. He then says that he has to offer us up as the ones responsible to stave off war, so we're like, nah man, we'll fight you. I remember him being a little bit more consistent with his magic attacks, especially on the red setting, but this was a cakewalk. We draw Leviathan and name it Big Fish, and immediately set it up to learn the recover ability because this will save our lives a million times in the endgame. Before we turn in for the night, we hand over our sister from the flashbacks to Adea's personal seeds. Nuh-uh, not yet. We haven't learned about that yet. Don't question it. Day 2 out at sea, Dolo wants to walk around again, and then we get called to the headmaster's office and find out we crashed into a fisherman's village and we have to go down to apologize. When we arrive in the village, we find out it's under attack from Galbadia looking for our surrogate time-bending sister, and then we get into a fight with the same vehicle that Zell's parties fought. Okay, why didn't they know it was us? Completely pointless fight, and by this time of the second disc, it really does feel like they're padding the game to make it feel longer. Now that the whole party's back together, everyone wants to throw a festival and play music while setting Solo and Dolo up. I remember having terrible luck with their interactions every time I played this game, and it turns out that you have to pick the upbeat jig and not their theme song that Dolo's mom wrote for the best possible dialogue. Why? Why would anyone know to do that the first time around? Going to be honest, I completely forgot why we're in Balam, but we're here. But a fight with Cypher's goons Fujin and Raijin is coming up soon, but good luck trying to find them. I usually always spend about 30 minutes going back and forth before I trigger the right step to start the fight. Before we entered Balam, however, we stopped by Galbadia train station in the desert area to farm sheer feathers so that we could refine them into the arrow spell and junction that to elemental defense for Fujin because she hits like a truck if you're not prepared. So the first phase of the fight is against Raijin by his lonesome, which isn't that bad. Just cast Protect on yourself and attack away. But wait, sleep works on him? No way it'll work on Fujin too. It does? One of the hardest fights in the game is completely negated by attacking them to trigger sleep and just alternating to the other one. So easy to exploit the fight, and I was actually worried about it. We draw Pandemonium and call this bad boy, it's Wimdy. We visit the Travia Garden because it was also hit by the missiles, and that's where Selphie is from. While there, some side dialogue about going to the orphanage that they were raised at because, oh yeah, they were all raised in the same place, but they don't remember that because, the GFs they used killed their memory. I'm physically rolling my eyes, you just can't see it. So we take the garden over to the orphanage and notice that the Galbadia garden is somehow also mobile at the same time ours is. A full-scale attack is launched between the gardens and war ensues. If there is any solace to this, it is the end of the worst disc in the game, and this part is actually pretty good. There is some side content with Zell wanting to borrow Solo's ring to make a copy for Dolo, and she almost dies when she has it because of course she does. Like, you had to do this now. Never mind, it's very obvious that these are teenagers. So at this point we have Doritos no encounters equipped, so we will only be doing mandatory fights from here out, and we have Solo at level 17, which is about 10 or so levels under what is normal for this stage of the game. We go through all the side content of, hey guy, she's going to fall to her death, and oh no, but Sid put me in charge, and I'm only 17, and I hate people. We eventually rescue her after some quick time events and arrive in the enemy garden. We have 3 boss fights to end the disc, but none of them should give us too much trouble. Firstly, we are going to attack the Cerberus in the center of the lobby to earn him as a GF. The main thing to consider is that he casts triple on himself, which allows him to cast whatever spell he chooses 3 times in one turn. Our HP is up to 4,000 at this point, so it doesn't end up being an issue, but something to consider for other playthroughs. We're running out of ideas clearly, so we name him Cereal. We are able to junction magic to speed, which helps with having us attack faster later in the game. Proceeding to the first boss room, we have a fight with Cypher again. It's the same as the first time, except now he has cute limit breaks that still don't do anything to us because we're built different. Idea calls him pathetic for losing, we agree, and then head down to the auditorium for the final confrontation. She does some crap talking before Cypher walks up behind her, and I'm definitely left wondering, how did he get there? It's like the parade float physics all over again. In the fight, we have to put down an already battered and bruised Cypher before the main fight begins. The biggest thing to worry about is Maelstrom in this fight. It saps half of our total HP and she has no issue using it over and over again. But once we get in a cycle of inflicting sleep on her and repeating it, she goes down with no issues beyond that. We have one last GF to draw from this fight before we're done with that business, and since his name is Alexander, I named him my last name because I'm dumb. He's OP because we get Element Defense Junction times 4 and Ability Junction times 3, which is very useful for endgame. Well, that's going to do it for part 1, everyone. To avoid keeping this video over 45 minutes, I'll be splitting it into 2 parts and I'll release the other half soon. Thanks for checking it out.